What the hell? Refresh. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. How we doing? Matthew, Taryn, Kevin. Let's go. Naveen. How are we today? Good, I hope. Sam. I hope everybody's doing well. Big ups, guys, on these calmer, probably quieter days after the window here. I think the lives are going to be a little more relaxed, and I'll probably keep them a little bit shorter just for now. Just for now. Keep it calm. Keep it calm. PR out for Kane. Yeah, there's nothing in that. Feels like from the press conference there will be academy players given a try this season. There will indeed be academy players tried this season. PR versus PSR video was great, educational. Yes, I appreciate that. It was great. It was great. It was a very good video. Whoa. It was a very good video, if I do say so myself. It was, I'm very happy with how it turned out. With all the work that went into the research and things like that as well. I like the live videos too, but they get exhausting. I think that I've been able to, between the priorities one and the PR and PSR videos, the nice part about those is I can do like a lot more preparation, and I feel like, with those I can really, I always express my opinions and also express things in a logical way, but at the same time, doing those kind of long form videos where I can do a bit more preparation means that I feel like I can put something out that's a little more unique, a little more me, that's a little less, I don't know. I lose track on lives as well. Not that the lives aren't fun. The lives are fun. They get to show more personality and all of that. But I think that those types of videos really suit the channel and the intention of what I wanted to get out there when I do those types of videos. I think they do help a lot. I've gotten, incredible feedback in it, honestly, like mind-blowing the amount of feedback. Because usually, like, I do these and there's good comments, things like that, nice questions, yada yada. But probably 100 plus comments on that video, just about how much sense it made, and I thought that was cool, because I went through it all on the live a couple weeks ago, if you remember, on that one Sunday, if you were here, and I remember the response to it was really good. People who were here really liked it, but I felt like I wasn't able to get it to everybody at the time, and it works. But yeah, 241 comments on that one video already, which is far more than any of my videos generally, just in terms of just feedback, and like 3 times the likes and things. And I'm not like an analytics, Andy, on looking at my numbers too much and things like that. But I like to know if stuff I'm making is, if people are enjoying it more than the average thing, and that thing is like unbelievably being unbelievably well received, which is pretty cool. I'm happy to hear that anyway. I'm happy to see that, because that was the point. That was definitely the point. I like the guys over at Paddock. I see them in summer when they've come by. I talk to a few of them on the regular. I probably will do some things with them. I've done some videos with Flex and those guys. I actually don't think that the United creators all dislike each other. There just happens to be one that seemingly cannot stand the fact that there's other people with different opinions. That's all. There's just one. Everybody else actually gets along quite well. I got no problem with anybody else. PSR video got a shout out on United View this morning by Flex. Oh, that's good to know. That's cool as well. That's really cool. That's good. I'll have to check that out. Like I said, like I was just saying, I've done a few videos with Flex. Nice, very nice guy. Him, wonderful people over there. I like them very much. There's just one, really. Everybody else actually gets along pretty well. But anyways, besides all that, it's unimportant. It is unimportant. I want to get into everything. I want to get into everything that we want to discuss, which is Ruben Amorim's comments. Another thing. I can't help myself, I really don't know what it is about the fan base in general on this topic, where it's like they just cannot accept the truth more often than not. Let's talk about Ruben Amorim, because Ruben Amorim made comments this morning which confirmed something I shared in the podcast on Monday. I shared it. I tweeted it. It was not well received on Twitter anyway, but everybody else, understands the truth of the matter. Which is that, as I said at that time, Ruben Amorim was happy with the business we did in January. Ruben Amorim was happy with the business we did in January. Ruben Amorim was not tricked in joining United on the state of things. Ruben Amorim didn't expect to have any signings in January when he joined the club. Ruben Amorim knew coming in that he was going to be taking over a club with and changing the type of way that we play, changing the style, changing all of that, without the ability to sign a bunch of players to fix it. He was going to do all of that. He knew all of that. Walking in, eyes open, nobody tricked him, nobody pulled the wool over his eyes. He knew how difficult it would be. They knew how difficult it would be. And he was happy. He was happy with the business that we did, that we were even able to get anyone. The biggest complaint that he's had, and the biggest thing that he was running into, including letting players go, for what it's worth, is, which he made comments on today, was that he wanted to be able to bring in more wingers that he trusted, right? He's very happy about the Dorgu one. He talks about who can play both sides. So as to, like, Ryan, your comment there, our goals have dried up since he's been playing defenders. Yes, totally. And he knows that. He knows that as well. He knows that very, very strongly, that is not the intention. When he first arrived, he played Ahmad at wingback from day one because he knew he wanted wide players, attacking players, pace and power, and real aggressors in those wide areas of his team, in the wingback areas of his team. He knows that we will struggle for goals without it, but we have not been able to do so, right? Because of the personnel available, especially at wingback, the personnel who suit the wingback positions, and injuries and other factors and things like that come into it. But he knew that was going to be a challenge going into it, that we did not have a ton of players to fit those wide positions, and that those were going to be the hallmark. Because as you're correctly noting there, if you really think about it, you have 3 defenders no matter what, you have 2 midfielders no matter what, and you have 3 forwards no matter what. Those 2 wingbacks really determine the entire balance of the team, right? Because if they're aggressive attacking wingbacks, then you have a very attacking team. If they're defending wingbacks, then you have a very defensive team. And this is how he did this at Sporting all the time. And one of the things I would note at Sporting is he would almost always sub the wingbacks in game at 60 to 65 minutes for whatever he needed. He uses them to change the game. So if he started with 1 defender and 1 attacker, he would very often, if they needed to press on for a goal and push the advantage, sub on another attacker for the defender, and that would add an attack to it. If they were in the lead, a few goals ahead, and they were looking to close it down, defend a bit more, he would substitute one of the wingers for more of a defensive wing back at that time. So those are his, he likes to keep really solid in that whole middle section. 3 center backs, 2 midfielders, 3 attackers, narrow. But the wing backs he uses to balance the team. It's either 2 attackers, 1 of each, or it's 2 defenders based on what he feels is needed at the start of the game, but also mid-game. And he used that. That's one of his primary means of affecting games mid-game, but also in how he wants to set up. It's the biggest thing. So he's extremely happy with getting another forward in who basically could play on both sides in that respect, because it gives him so many options in terms of how we want to play, how we want to be aggressive, where we can actually play 2 attacking fullbacks with the footedness he wants, attacking wingbacks on both sides or 1 of each. He could go defensive on the right and attacking on the left if he feels like he's got enough on the right from Ahmad and all of that. So he's happy with the business being done. And again, from his perspective, he feels he has a stronger squad than when he started, because you have to think of January 1st. On January 1st, he had no Rashford. He was already out of the team, and he wasn't intending to bring him back or use him this season. And he had Antony. And with Antony, he had a player who he would use very sparingly as an emergency wingback. By the end of the window, he'd added a full-time first-team left wing back. So that player in Dorgu already, from his perspective, gives him more than he started the window with. And then you add in Aiden Heaven, and really the only unfortunate loss is, of course, Lisandro Martinez getting injured. Just unpredictable. Impossible to know that something like that could happen in the day before the end of the window. Really unfortunate for him, obviously. But they did sign a left center back in Aiden Heaven that is intended to play, that is going into the first team. And so, it's almost, we knew that left center back was going to be something they were looking at, right? But that they were probably going to, what's the word for it? Want somebody there, because there were doubts on some of the physical traits of Lisandro Martinez and things like that, even though he'd been playing pretty well. So we'll either way, Amorim is happy, and you take his comments. He says, changing everything in the middle of the season without new signings is a danger for a coach, but I have a clear idea of what I want to do and take these risks because in the end it's going to pay off. It was my decision to do that. So as much as people would want to stir it up that he's been let down, as much as people would want to stir it up that he's been, he should walk, or that, he's been fooled, or that he's a victim, he's not a victim. Ruben Amorim is not a victim. He's not stupid. And he joined for a reason. And he knew exactly what he was getting. He says that Dorgu and Heaven are ready to play. And just even making it more clear, he said, with Laurie Whitwell, had this quote here. I already knew when I came here. Look at schedule, look at team, look at my decisions to change everything, take hard decisions without new signings. It's a danger for a coach, but I have a clear idea of what you want to do. He knew it. He knew all of it, okay? So that's it. He's responsible for the situation. He knows the situation. He came into it clear-headed. Nobody was screwing over another manager. In fact, quite honestly, our managers haven't been screwed over. The last manager who was really screwed over was Jose Mourinho, honestly. In a sense, right? Our managers have been screwed over in the years since, in that we never really had a proper football structure in place. But both Solskjaer and Erik ten Hag were backed significantly in the decisions and in transfers and the market. Too much, honestly. And it is amusing because the last manager who was really screwed over was Jose Mourinho, and he would have been the right one to back because he probably would have fixed quite a lot if he'd been given more time. And I'll always stand by that. Understand where things were at with with Jose, but he wanted to fix things. He wanted to fix things, and he was right about a whole lot of stuff. Even though at times it was painful, it was right. Ole getting Palestri and CR7 was a screw over? No, it wasn't. I have pretty intimate knowledge of those windows, and Solskjaer wanted Cristiano Ronaldo. He wanted him. It is not true that he didn't want him. He wanted Cristiano. He wanted to sign him. He wanted to bring him in. Um, he was not. It was not forced on him at that time. He wanted him. Solskjaer didn't get every player he wanted, but he certainly was backed with a number of players and as well. But primarily the biggest issue was that they again they didn't have the right football structure in place for him. But he was backed with signings. He was backed with money, significant amounts of money. Um, yeah. So they were mostly were. We missed out on players, no doubt, but for sure, yeah. Ole wanted Cristiano. I don't know why people have made that up that he didn't. It's very odd. He wanted him, and he admitted it himself. But yeah, we made it. But he exactly. It was a mistake in hindsight, but he would do it again. Exactly. He wanted it, but it was a mistake, and that's fine. I wasn't making a point of it, except that the managers have mostly gotten it. Now we have a whole new structure in place, obviously, to make sure we don't make the same mistakes, and that's the point, right? That's the comments that Amorim makes. Is that we cannot make the same mistakes that we have made before. We cannot make the same mistakes that we've made before in the market. That we cannot panic and sign players simply because we need somebody, and we end up wasting the money that we didn't have. So just an important note, because it's also fair to not judge Amorim on where he is now. It's going to take time. He's backed, but it's also that everybody knew this. So you can write off stories of, him being under pressure. He's being backed for the future. I'm not saying he's not under pressure. He's under pressure, as he says, like any manager would be, for results and things. But everybody knew where this was, right? Everybody knew where this was and where it was going. And nobody's getting screwed over. Nobody's getting lied to. Nobody's being deceived by management. They're all entirely on the same page. I shared this at the end of last week. I went into detail on it on a live and said, look, I want to clarify something on this. Amorim is fully on the same page as everybody there on what we're doing. And he's confirmed plenty of that himself. An interesting one on the Dorgu deal is you saw some reports that we were saying, to Lecce, it's now or never. And that is true, of course, because we had other targets in summer. Dorgu, we were going to sign him, or we weren't going to sign anybody in January, because again, it's about getting our targets we really wanted. And if we passed upon Dorgu, we would be going for Mendes or Kirkes in the summer. So it was very smart by having actual real alternative options and being willing to walk. You have negotiating power. That's one of the things we've never been willing to do in the past, and that's some of the point of this whole thing too. If you are not willing to miss, if you are not willing to not get a deal done, then you have no negotiating power. No, there is no negotiation without the ability for a deal to not occur. That's sort of the funny part about it. Negotiating isn't just about getting the deal done. Sometimes it's about not doing it. And that sets you up for the future when you're willing to not do a deal. And United were willing to not do a deal for Dorgu as well if they didn't come down to a reasonable price, because they were not going to pay 40 million. Then it was not going to happen, and they would wait till summer, and they would get one of their other targets at a better value. So that is a strong part of a negotiation that we've never had before, where we've always been unwilling to not get the deal done. And that means that you're kind of up against the wall with that. You're always going to overpay, and you really lose a lot of negotiating powers. Matt Hargreaves still the lead negotiator. He is. But as you can tell, it's not about the negotiator, because if your negotiator is unable to walk away, he's not a negotiator. He's just a deal maker, and there's a difference. There's a difference between a guy who goes to put the offer in and sign the papers and be the face, and a negotiator. A negotiator has the power to walk away, and to make deals, and the front man just has the ability to just be the voice for the people behind the scenes. And if the people behind the scenes are not willing to let them walk, then there's nothing you can do. So we'll see here. I do think that our new signings will play pretty easily. Let's move on to Shaw and Lissandro. Obviously, Lissandro Martinez has a double, sounds like a double injury. It's not totally clear, but at least to an ACL tear, potentially MCL as well. And it's a 6 to 9 month recovery these days. It's not the death knell necessarily that it used to be. However, being quite honest about it, with Lissandro, who already struggles with pace, who already struggles a bit with covering the distances, with certain aspects of that physicality, and with the fact that he already lost a step on the surgeries that happened with his foot. I don't expect that it's going to be that easy for him to come back, you know, um, and do well. I'm not saying he can't come back and be a footballer, mind you, but it's a left center back is a priority. A left center back is a priority. I mean, maybe Aiden Heaven comes on and just blows everybody away, right? But it is definitely a priority. There is a necessity, and it was being looked at before, and now obviously getting another progressive, ideally athletic left-sided center back becomes a major issue. And I broke that down on the summer kind of breakdown, which we will go forward. And look at. It will alter our summer plans. It will alter our summer plans because we will just not know whether Lissandro can return to the level that he was. And even at the level that he was, there were still concerns. So hopefully we get to see Aiden Heaven play, what kind of level of player he is. Is he good enough to be a starter? Is he good enough to be depth? Is he not good enough to be either? And that will determine where we have to go in that window. And in addition to that, Luke Shaw obviously, as I've shared many times, there's very little expectation that he will ever get healthy, to the level that he will be. There's very little expectation that he will ever get healthy to the level that he can actually be relied upon. He was nearly back in training and ready to play, and then picks up another minor injury somewhere else. And it seems like, his body's just, as we've discussed so many times, his body's just broken. Now, he was already being shifted to a left center back. So maybe maybe he'll get a little bit of time in there. Maybe he'll get a little bit of coverage in there, but it really does leave us quite short at left center back and makes that a huge, huge priority. Let's talk about PSR quickly and where we're at for summer. There was something aggregated from Laurie Whitwell also that confirmed one of the things I shared in yesterday's video. Now, if you haven't watched yesterday's video, I 1 bajillion percent recommend that you watch it so that you can understand exactly where we're at, where we've been, and where we're going. Because it all becomes extremely clear once you look at it. And one of the things that I shared in there is that, given that the PSR thing is extremely real right now, United probably won't spend anything before July 1st. They're probably going to spend nothing before July 1st. And then after July 1st, when the year rolls over, they will be able to spend some money. It will still be limited, especially without Europe, okay? Especially without Europe. But that doesn't mean nothing. Let's see. I've got it pulled up here. So just so we can look at this one slide from the end where I made the kind of the conclusion on what we would probably spend. That is, without Europe, okay? Without Europe, we'll be able to spend, because of the estimated wage savings from Eriksson, Lindelof, and Evans, and the sale of Sancho, where we'll remove his amortization from the books. We should kind of almost break even on that. 35 million in yearly savings. That's pretty significant. That's what we will reduce in addition. With the savings, if you go through the video again, with all the other savings, the cuts, the things that are happening, that means we should be able to spend what we save, okay? So a 35 million yearly savings covers essentially this 90 to 100 million in fees and spending, and about 300,000 a week in wages, basically. So, given all of that, we should be able to complete a deal for Kenda and a striker with the money that we have saved. We should be able to do that. We should be able to accomplish that. I mean, here's the crazy part, and it is really so ridiculous when you look at the waste, right? Eriksson, Lindelof, Evans, Sancho, 35 million a year, and they're giving us nothing. They do nothing for us. That's what it's costing us for those 4 players, and they give nothing for us. That's how much money we're wasting. And that's not even half of the players in waste. This isn't even half of the waste that we have every year on players, and just how poorly we've been spending. 35 million a year going to nothing, not providing anything for the club. It's an enormous amount of waste. So yeah, Kenda I expect will be in the range of 35 to 40 million pounds, and then a striker probably in the same vein. I would expect maybe Kenda will end up being about 50 million euros plus add-ons or something like that in order to get the deal done, and a striker. So we can make those kind of signings regardless based on our PSR. We should have the money to do that with the lessening with the departures, even if we cannot get into Europe next year, if we miss out entirely. But permanent expected departures would add to the spend on sell to buy significantly. So after that, we're very likely going to be purely on the basis of outs. Okay, we're going to be purely on the basis of outs from that point on without Europe. So that means Rashford, Antony, Casemiro, Malacia, all of that, right? Now, every single one of them, if they are sold, depending on how much they're sold, and depending on if there's any payoff in their wages, will add a significant portion to transfer spending. Rashford, as we know, if he goes for 40 million as an option, it's 40 million in profit. That honestly gives us another 70, 80 million to spend plus wages. So it can change really quickly with these sales. But they also can't go too crazy because you only get the sale once. The bigger factor is the wages off. Is if you can clear Rashford's 350,000, it's not really 350. If you can clear Rashford's 300,000 a week permanently, then that gives you another probably 40, 50 million. That gives you another player, right? And then the fee helps, but you only get the fee one time, so you can spend some of it. If you clear Antony's wages off, you can buy a player. If you clear Casemiro's wages off, you can buy a player. And with Antony and Casemiro, they're actually in some ways they provide even almost a little bit of a not better benefit, but a similar benefit, because if you can clear their amortization as well, then you can buy 1 or 2 players. So there's a lot that comes into this, really. There's a lot that comes into making this into what United can do if they can move some players on. But we will be able to spend after July 1st once we get rid of these. And now that doesn't mean we won't line deals up, right? Like Kenda between now and then. That we won't line deals up then, but yeah, we'll line deals up, but they won't be completed until after July 1st anyway, which doesn't really matter. Do you reckon we'll sell Mount, Ras, Xerxes, Onana, Shaw as well? We'll try, but it's going to be really hard to sell them. It's going to be really hard to sell a bunch of those players. The goalkeeper is a factor in that. If we do manage to win the Europa League and get Champions League, our spending will probably be not unlimited, but far significantly less limited. If we end up winning the Champions League, winning Europa League and getting into Champions League, we could spend a lot. We could spend a lot. Yeah, like it changes it pretty dramatically, because you're just talking about another, net 60 million in revenue coming in. That just boom straight in the door that we really need. That essentially is going to cover virtually everything. It's a huge factor in all of this. So if we can get into Champions League and win Europa, then obviously that is super helpful. Excuse me. Without hurting future windows. Yeah, because at that point, then you want to be aggressive. because you want to, to be aggressive. You want to stay in Champions League, so you want to invest in that. Um, yeah, you want to stay invested in that, and that's the main thing. You want to invest. If you win Europa and you get into Champions League, you need to invest it so that you can stay in the Champions League, and that's an opportunity. Where we've seen in the past, the Glazers have used that as an opportunity to save money and take dividends. That's not the case. So if you can get into the Champions League, we want to use what we can to get back and stay in the Champions League regularly, because we need that revenue. We need that revenue to spend. We need that revenue to balance the books. We also need that revenue in order to attract interest in the club, and not the revenue necessarily, but the prestige of being in the Champions League. We need that for the stadium project, for everything. We need all of that. And so if we can manage to somehow win Europa and get into Champions League, yeah, I think they will spend significantly to ensure that we get what we need in order to stay there, because it is such a massive target for them that from 25, 26, 26, 27, that we're in the Champions League and competitive. For revenue, to balance the books, and to draw sponsors and interest and all that to the stadium project as well. From a football side of things, we can't be the biggest club and the biggest attraction and the stadium that everybody wants to be involved in if we're not competing, if we're not competitive. So we have to, and that is a big factor. So yeah, that's PSR. Let me change it to the other one now. Hold on. Okay, and then there's the other one. Hold on, sorry. Then there's the other one, and this is the video I did the day before that. This is the video I did the day before that on kind of our priorities and all of that. And again, I think it's a good video to look through. We've kind of done the charts and things that I've done, but I thought this was a better representation. Going through this way, this is the view of like the long-term rebuild and where we want to go. The important thing to note here is, that's just really clear, is just because, I put a couple in yellow, doesn't really mean anything. Doesn't mean that those aren't just as urgent. It's just that, the way that you have to view things from the perspective of squad building is that your first priorities are still always balance, right? Because if you get a good striker in, but you have no left center back and you have no right wing back at all, you just don't have those positions, you're still going to be screwed. If you cannot being able to play the way you want to play is the first priority. And the first priority then for Amorim, due to injuries and things like that, is we're going to need a left center back and we're going to need a right wing back. That doesn't mean striker isn't a top priority. It is. It's top priority. I'm just saying we're going to need to do all of those things. And the view is that we have to do all of those things. So it's not like just by putting it second that we're not going to sign it. The striker is absolutely top priority because we know we don't have a good enough striker right now. But these are really just as important so we can play the way we want to play. So the way that it's been looked at is that we need a right wing back / right 10 type of person, so that Ahmad can play out wide, or they can play out wide and Ahmad can play here. Giovanni Kenda being the main target for that right now. We discussed the left center back thing. This wouldn't have been as much a priority 5 days ago, and it would have been just, Kenda and a striker, and that's over everything else, and you really don't need much else. Due to the injury to Lisandro Martinez, this has become potentially an elite, a top priority for absolutely everybody. We have to do something here. So that is also a huge priority. But we do have some options in Aid in Heaven to play here. Lenny Yoro can cover on that side, but he likes left footers on the left, so that's probably not a long-term solution. And then we have this interesting question that's more a curiosity, which is this left 10 left midfielder thing. Essentially, we have Garnacho, Bruno, and Mainu, 3 players for 2 positions. It's not. We need at least one more player here for sure. We need at least one more player here for sure, but we also have to determine what are the positions. If we sign a midfielder and Bruno pushes up, then it and he becomes our first choice 10, then it changes the dynamic of things. If Bruno is really a deep player and such, then we need a forward, and there's a lot of questions to be answered here that we don't have the answers to yet, but we should by the end of the season know exactly what we're going to do in this position. So we'll find out. We will find out pretty soon. Personally, I think Bruno will shift forward and we'll sign a midfielder. And that will sign a right-sided forward and a striker, and that gives us enough in the attack. But we will see. It really does depend on what happens here. I don't think we should pass up the midfield. I think we really should get a midfielder that makes a good partner to Ugarte and doesn't take Bruno out of his best positions. I think that would be a mistake. Not saying we shouldn't get a forward, but that really has to be determined by Garnacho. If Garnacho is good enough, great. If he's not good enough, sell and replace. But we should sign a midfielder regardless, and then we can have a midfielder and Mainu. We can have Bruno and Garnacho, or Bruno and a signing, and that's it. And it's got to be one of those things. But we need to sign a midfielder as well in there to match. We need that. And I went through it in this whole presentation about that left midfielder position and kind of what you could look at in terms of like an 8, because while you get from Bruno like this highly progressive play, he does not do the defending work. He's out of he's kind of out of sorts to me. It's not the right solution. He loses focus defensively. You want more of an all action player. Mainu fits it better, but can he do the role to the level? Not really sure. Either there might be a more ideal player for that kind of position. So I would definitely look to some of these players, and and getting a young player like Hayden Hackney in who fits it really well, to me makes a lot of sense. I would be happy for, I'm not saying he's the option, but just because we were talking about it the other day, makes a lot of sense to me to keep where we're going. So that's the summer. We kind of know where we're going to go if we can. We're going to have to get a striker, and we're going to have to get a wing back. Now, we can probably do that even before sales, but it makes sense as well that we're going to be looking between now and summer on who we shift out of the 2 strikers, who moves on, because one of them is going to have to, if we're signing a striker. We can't really fit both of them in there. So we'll see who ends up suiting the team more by the end of the season and all of that. Xerxes would be a lot easier to sell. We bought him on a cheaper deal. At a release clause. He's a young player who had a lot of success in Italy, and a lot of clubs are still interested in him. He would be a good one there. He would be easier to move, but he might be the better player between him and Højlund. We don't know. Højlund will be really tough to move because he still has a lot. I mean, he still has... you would need to get 40 million for Højlund in order to break even. That's going to be really difficult, so you'd probably have to loan Rasmus Højlund on and then sell him the next season. Or maybe he works out and then you keep him and he develops well on loan and you keep him and sell Xerxes the next summer. But one of those things would have to happen. And it sort of depends. It sort of depends. It depends on, and it depends on Amorim, because there's the financial consideration of it, but you obviously don't want to keep who you consider the worst player just on that basis and get rid of one that you think has actual value in the team. So we'll see, but I think loaning Højlund might be the smartest option. Loaning Højlund might be the smartest option that we have. Then so yeah, so we can make those considerations. We'll have to see what happens at left center back between now and summer, and but that's very likely to be a signing as well. And then really, we'll just have to watch what do we do with Mainu, Bruno, and Garnacho through the rest of the year. Does any of them, you know, does Garnacho really kick on, or does he become a subject of discussion for sale in summer? Does Mainu nail down a position, or where is he at? Which position is Bruno going to be in long term? We don't know, but I think those things have to get nailed down as well, and we'll have to make one, maybe two one signing in that area. Two, if we move on, Alejandro Garnacho for sure. Then we need two good, very, very good signings. In terms of early targets, obviously, when we look at the right wing back position, we know that Kenda is a very strong target. We know that someone like Tyler Dibling could work over there as well. I also know that, as a right 10, Nene Dorgelis is someone we will be interested in going back to if we decide we want to get an extra attacker who can play on both sides, left 10 and right 10, but probably not wing back for those positions. At striker, there's not a lot of top strikers, so it's really going to determine what kind we want. But we've kind of gone through the list of them that they're looking at. We know Osimhen has been someone of interest to United for a long time. We know Liam Delap is someone that they've looked at. We know Benjamin Šeško is a younger, more developmental player that they followed, but I would be a little concerned about him because he could just be another Xerxes and not really be the goal-scoring 9 that we need. I would be a little worried about that. He seems less prolific in that respect. Then there's obviously Gyökeres because of the connection to Ruben Amorim, but I still think there's some risk involved in that one. And then there's Samu Aghawa, who they have watched at Porto as well, and who has been fantastic. In fact, Aghawa, actually, when you look at non-penalty goals, is a better goal scorer than Gyökeres, and he's only 20. But he's very experienced as well. He might be quite expensive, but I don't think that we should consider necessarily age to be that important. It's more, how are they doing right now? Are they ones who are already accomplishing things? Osimhen, we know how good he is. Is he interested? He'd be expensive, and his wages would be high. Liam Delap, there's going to be a lot of competition for him. Is he good enough? Maybe. We'll see by the end of the season. Gyökeres, a lot of competition for him. There might be some risks, but in terms of cost and balance, he'd probably be right around the middle. But there will be a lot of interest in him. And then Aghawa, he's prolific. Big, fits really well, very physical, definitely adds pace and power, but he's not a donkey at all. And he's young, but so what? He'll have 2 full senior seasons and is scoring a lot of goals and played in Europe and very experienced. So there's a lot of balances on this, and I think it'll come down to who they can get, and whether they can afford it. But wages will probably be a factor in that too. And we'll have to see if they decide to go for more experience or not development, because I don't think we'll go for, Højlund was a real development player, barely played. I think that it's going to be a gamble either way, but we'll see if they they've not signed anyone over the age of 25. Okay. We've not signed anyone over the age of 25 yet under Ineos, right? They've all been, Mazraoui we did. That's the only one on that cheap deal that I think kind of came alongside De Ligt, quite honestly, right? But besides Mazraoui, everybody else has been young. Do they stick with that for striker, or do they? And I don't think that young means means bad. I don't think young means inexperienced. I don't think young means they can't get going. I mean, we've had young players that have come through and done extremely well. If they're the right player, they've come in. There's really developmental ones, and there's young players who are ready. So we'll have to see where we land with this, if they decide to get, slightly more experienced in this respect, or if they still go young, and we'll see where they land. We don't really know. At left center back, we're gonna have to open up that book again of potential. We're gonna have to open up that book again of potential left center backs that we've been looking at in the past and see, who is of interest. Gonçalo Inácio being again an obvious one. Yes, there's the Sporting connection. and the Amorim connection, but he's been someone they've been looking at for multiple years that they could have signed at left center back previously. So I guess we will see there. What happens if they go for him? But there's other names as well that I don't know now because we kind of put the book down. Can I state your risks with Gyökeres? Sure. The concerns that I have with Gyökeres are, he's had a bit of a weird career to me. When he was 21 years old, he was like Højlund. He was no good. He went to Brighton and kind of failed dramatically and couldn't even play. And then he'd take another weird step and started performing, and then he went to Portugal. His career has not been, like, I was looking at strikers yesterday. Osimhen, a lot of the really good strikers, and their careers are pretty solid. Pretty solid growth. By 2021, they were good. Okay, they were good. Like, they were scoring. They were producing. They were, wherever they were producing, even by 21 years old. Gyökeres had like a decent season and then a really weird kind of crash and then come back up again, but at like Coventry and Sporting. There's just some oddities with it. He takes a lot of penalties, which inflate his stats a little bit as well. And we will see. But I just think there's some risk. That's all. I just think that there's some risk with it because he's not had the smooth development in his career in the same way. I've watched a lot of him as well at Sporting, and I do like what I think he's very good. But I think sometimes, like, I found him really similar to Højlund, and that makes me nervous. Because I think sometimes he wins because he can outrun his opponents. And I think he will have less space and less ability to do so in the Premier League. His movement and play when the game isn't open is not nearly as good as his movement and play when the game is open. And he scores a lot of penalties. So it's just in between. I know people will tell me to check Harry Kane, but for every guy who dropped off and then it went great, there's 100 who never did, who never came back. Okay? Yeah, at 22, he had a 34-goal season at Spurs, right? I think people, Kane was, I don't, there's a lot of players who've improved regularly. There are only similarities between Scandinavian Blonde. No, they have a lot of other similarities, actually. Your PSR video is amazing. I hope it convinces some people that PSR isn't a joke instead of jumping on the Ineos bandwagon. Well, that's the idea. There is a lot of similarities, actually, between them in terms of their strengths in running into space. Is Gyökeres more technical? Absolutely. He has a better touch. He has better control. His intelligence in the making of the runs is there. But I still have concerns with strikers who are still primarily there's just some concerns. Not saying he wouldn't work out at all. I just have some concerns. Been fooled before. I just have some concerns, but I have concerns with all of them, frankly. But there's differences. There's differences, and I still get concerned about ones who I don't know who drop off. Osimhen scores a lot from penalties, but Osimhen brings a lot of other players into the play. Osimhen is a very well-rounded player in terms of his overall skill set. He does a whole lot. But regardless, I think they'd all be a significant improvement. And I think we're all going to have very different opinions on who's the best one, and for very different reasons, and it's impossible to know for certain. Who there is. So, and then we move on to the midfield. We kind of touched on the targets there and the left 10. And those, again, it's up in the air because it's really going to depend on what we do, on how we play for the rest of the season, on who plays where, and all of that. Yes, I understand Duncan Castles has talked about Kenda. It's nothing we don't know. We're interested in him. We're lining it up. We're working on it. And we'll see where it goes. Of course, Kenda is someone that's on the radar of a lot of teams, as I've shared many times, and that's, of course, as well why United would want to get a deal done early. Ekitike is a good, interesting striker, but he's also a bit suspect. He made a couple of moves, had some weird situations. He was on United's radar, and now he's performing at that German club where every striker that leaves turns into a mistake. Every single one of them that comes from that German club and performs there is a bit of a, not a fraud, but it doesn't work out when they make that move. There's a lot of risks. There's a lot of risks with that. It is a very, very risky one to me. Because you've had so many strikers go from that club and turn to shit at every club that they've been to. Yeah, Frankfurt. You've had it so many times from Frankfurt. I mean, even Madrid got fooled by it and bought from Frankfurt, and it went to crap. So I have nerves. I have nerves about that. I have nerves about that because just historically, it's been like a 0% success rate for strikers. Probably Aller was the best one. Sebastian Aller was the best one that came out of that, and even him, you know, weird issues, didn't really make it in the Premier League. All of that. So yeah, lots to consider. Lots to consider. Yeah, Jovic was the one that Madrid bought. Yeah, lots to consider on this. So again, Amorim happy, knows what he's doing. Sean Lissandro out certainly changes and makes us look at the left center back position. PSR, we know we could get a few players in because of departures. Europe would be a huge factor, but then it's going to be sell to buy, and it'll be after July 1st. Right wing back, striker, left center back, and then we really don't know midfield, left 10, all of that. And then goalkeeper, we know is very likely to be one in, one out. So yeah, that's what we've got. I'm not going to spend more time on the live today. It's been almost an hour. I want to keep it to that for now. And I will be doing a Academy review later today. I will be recording Academy review later today, and that will be out. So make sure you catch that. We skipped last week, but we'll have that this week with my same guest, Academy Arena United, and then I'll be live tomorrow morning for pre-match. Probably do a post-match one as well, and then next week I'll do videos on all of these things too: the midfield targets, the right wing back targets, the striker targets, all of those types of things. And so lots to come. Okay. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Enjoy the rest of your day. And again, come back for the Academy review video that will be posted later. And once again, if you haven't watched the PSR video, watch it, share it, tweet it, spread it around, because the more, the better.